This is Grandt Line's No Problem Joes. It's an HO scale all plastic kit with injection moulded styrene parts for the main house, work shed, picket fence panel and outhouse. You also get an instruction sheet as well as some acetate for glazing the windows and doors. I used some model shears to cut the parts from the sprue and Tamiya plastic cement to bond the structures together. Here I use an X-Acto knife to clean up some flash, and also an emery board. While I was working on the awning, one of the posts broke apart, so I had to glue this piece back together. The only problem I had when putting this kit together was that the roof was warping upwards on all corners, so some fast setting superglue was needed for this section. I wanted the work shed door to be ajar slightly, so using my X-Acto knife, I cut it at the seams and prised it open, making sure not to break the hinge off. Here I'm carefully removing one of the pickets from the fencing panel. After assembly is complete, I use Rust-Oleum white plastic primer on all the parts. I used Vallejo acrylic paints thinned down with Vallejo airbrush thinner to paint the base layers of the house, making sure to build up the colours gradually. I also make sure to wear a mask and keep the room ventilated while doing this. I didn't have any masking tape to hand for this next part, so I used black electrical tape, which worked just as well for what I was after. Here I use hairspray and fine salt to get a speckled paint effect. I first use the hairspray as an adhesive and then sprinkle the salt on in desired areas. Then once I apply my finishing colour, I can pull off the salt to reveal the brown base layer underneath. I masked off the window tops and sprayed with Vallejo Saddle Brown. Using a toothbrush, I removed the salt for the speckled paint effect. I used Vallejo white grey to paint the trim and post sections. And stippled on some burnt umber for speckling variation using a sponge. To create a wash, I mix window cleaner and NATO black together and apply it to the building. I do the same again for the chimney, this time mixing window cleaner and white. I weather up the house using some black pastel chalks. Here I'm using the metal edge of the paintbrush to chip away the paint on the corners of the roof. The cutting template for the glazing provided in the kit didn't quite make sense to me, so I measured the insides with some calipers and printed out my own template from a Word document. I used a small drop of plastic cement in each corner to glue the acetate in place. I scaled up some images of curtains and printed them out, then cut them using an X-Acto knife and glued them in place using some tacky glue. I wanted to add a little light to the interior of the building, so using a 4mm drill bit I created a hole in the base of the structure. Here I'm roughly planning out my diorama using some paper. For the main structure of the diorama, I'm using 10mm XPS insulation foam. For a clean cut, the best thing for this stuff is a long, retractable straight blade. I've measured the diorama to be 25cm by 20cm, and I use a metal ruler to make my cuts. I need to bulk up the base, so to do this, I cut two matching pieces and roughen up both sides using a wire brush. This gives the polyurethane glue I'm about to use something to grip onto. This polyurethane Gorilla Glue expands as it dries, so to make sure the pieces don't move, I make sure to weigh it down. Here I've made a slight embankment for the work shed to sit on. I attach it to the main base in the same way. I used Geek Gaming Scenics modelling compound for the terrain of the diorama. This stuff is really good and quite similar to sculptor mould. Just mix it with a ratio of 3 parts compound and 1 part water, and add more or less of what you need to depending on the consistency you're after. I left the compound to dry for over 24 hours before painting the entire thing with a mix of burnt umber and white. For the dirt texture I used some sieved brick rubble. I poured it into a small container and wrapped some tights around the opening to sift out onto the wet paint. I also had some very tiny stones that I found outside. To fix all this in place, I first spray the whole thing with isopropyl alcohol, and then spray over that with some homemade scenic glue mixture of 1 part matte Mod Podge to 3 parts water with a drop of washing up liquid in it. I learned this method from watching Luke Towan's diorama tutorials here on YouTube. The isopropyl alcohol helps the glue sink into the diorama and secure everything in place. Then I just use a tissue to soak up any of the pooling glue. I make a mask for the buildings using some cardboard. I use Mod Podge Matte and a various selection of World Scenics grass. I apply it to the diorama using a cheap static grass applicator. I work in small areas to avoid the Mod Podge drying too quickly. This was the first time ever using a static grass applicator for me, and I actually gave myself a pretty nasty electric shock at one point when I held the applicator too close to the crocodile clip. So that's something to watch out for if you're thinking of doing this yourself. Here I use dark grey grout blended in with a paintbrush to lighten up the pathway areas. I snapped off some twigs from a nearby bush and used a pair of scissors to prune it to shape for a leafless tree. I also wanted to add a branch onto one side of it. This was very easy to do using tacky glue. I hand screwed a hole into the diorama base and glued the tree in place using more tacky glue. I needed a bit more stability with this tree, so I drilled into the root and inserted a metal rod so it could have a better hold once in place. I realised I could get a nice dead leaf effect on the grass by scraping the bark off the inside of one of the small branches I had picked off. I made a hole right the way through the diorama so I could insert the LED. I soldered the LED to a standard 9-volt battery switch and glued the building in place with tacky glue. Lastly, I framed the edges with some black acrylic paint. I had a really good time building this diorama. The kit itself was also very well put together and easy to assemble. I'm looking forward to doing more of these in the future. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks very much.